Hi, Retired Men's Group. My name is Sarah Smith Terranova, and I am the daughter of David Smith, who is one of your members. I also grew up since the age of 3 next to Craig Garner, and Craig has been talking to me about how I've been living this past year as a teacher in the pandemic and trying to educate kids. So I've been teaching at Pecopson Elementary School in the Unionville Chadsford School District for the past 6 years. Prior to that, I stayed home with my 3 daughters. And then before that, I worked in the Kennett Consolidated School District for about 12, 13 years. So about a year ago is when we were having our 2 week break to get over the rise in the coronavirus cases. And we pretty much all grabbed as many things as we could and worked from home. So coming back in the fall, we spent the first month virtual. The teachers were at school if they could be. Some teachers had some leeway to work from home. They had to come in at least one day a week. Some teachers took some leaves because they had some medical conditions, but we pretty much, the Chester County Board of Health said that we were not allowed to have the students in school. I went in 3 to 4 days a week. I had 2 days to be at home due to if my husband needed to leave because I had 3 kids at home being homeschooled. Um, and doing virtual learning, not completely homeschooled. So as of October, I think it was October 12th, our school board said we could come back in. So for my seventh grader, she was able to go in out of a 6 day cycle. She was able to go in 2 days. And this wasn't very easy because the 4 days that you, out of the 6 day cycle that you weren't in, you were on Zoom for about 6 hours. This didn't go over well with many parents and kids in the district. There were a lot of migraines, just it was just too much time to be on Zoom. So as they got towards the holiday season, they ended that, and there were some cases on the rise, so it was sort of a good fit. But for my elementary school kids, I have a third grader and a fifth grader, and the whole school was divided into either in a morning cohort or an afternoon cohort. And so my two were in the morning. They would get up, they would go in the bus. They were on with about 5 or 10 kids, and most parents would drop off their kids, and they went into school wearing masks, and around noon they would come home, and then the teachers had between 12 and 1, and by 1 o'clock the afternoon kids were coming in. This was a good way to avoid the students using the cafeteria and all of that you know multiple surfaces being touched and dealing with food, because when you eat you take your masks off. So we pretty much were doing that from October 12th until just today. Today is March 15th. It's the year anniversary of when we went into complete quarantine shutdown. And today was a day that my middle school child went to school 8 to 1 o'clock, and she will be there tomorrow for that same time period. Wednesday will be asynchronous learning, meaning that she'll just check in through the computer and she'll do work at home and she'll just have a bunch of assignments. But then she'll be in school Thursday and Friday, 8 to 1. My elementary school kids went to school full day today. They had lunch, they had recess, and it was a really good day. So we're moving back and we're moving in a great direction. Um, so as far as what it looks like in the classroom, we are not spreading it in school. Some of the families might be getting it per vacations, per family parties, sports, and they might come in and there might be some exposure to exposure, but we're pretty much not spreading it. Hillendale Elementary School was shut down twice because they had several cases. They're also a very small school. We never had enough cases um, at the same time that we would be shut down. So we have been pretty consistent. Um, we are we've had our first graders in for the past 2 weeks, full day, and the first grade teachers have loved it. They said it's great, and all the kids have been learning really, really well. But just to let you know what this looks like, I'm going to share my screen. I made a little presentation for you to see what happens in the schools. So hopefully this is going to record well, and I'm going to tuck myself over here. So virtual teaching. So this is something called a Bitmoji, and I am not really hip on these kind of things, but I had to learn how to create this. And this is just a matter of downloading an app on your phone, and it walks you through the shape of your face, the color of your eyes, the color of your hair, all that kind of stuff. Fortunately, I had a seventh grader who did most of it for me. But the point of this was that when the kids were engaged in Zoom lessons in the beginning of the school year, we needed to do things that sort of spoke their language and got them involved. So to just sort of have a smiley face or a thumbs up doesn't give you very much. But these kind of things are silly and fun, and the kids really get connected to them. So this is something that all the teachers were trained on in the summer, and so now we all feel like we're hip like the teenagers. This is another thing called, this is another part of the Bitmoji, but this is what a lot of the teachers just downloaded these templates from the internet. We would go on Facebook, and they would have Facebook groups, and they would have rooms like this. And so the thing about rooms like this is you could have a welcome room for the parents to see, for the kids to see as for their classroom. And then all of these little areas, like you could change the sign from grateful and blessed to say math. And when the kids click on that, they can then springboard them into the math lessons. Or you could have something over here in the library, like if there's a book you want them to read, you could have a little link right there, and the kids would click on it. So it made it more engaging for the students when they were in virtual learning, that they could sort of hit little buttons all over the place, and it would take them to different parts of their science lesson or a guidance lesson from the guidance counselor. You could even put them in little breakout groups so they could be in Zoom rooms together that way. So it just made it a lot more engaging than just having people across the way. And when you get a group of 20 kids and they all want to talk, it's a way to get them a little more actively involved and to keep them interested. Okay, this was my best friend right here. This is called an iPivo camera. And so this little simple thing, this is just metal. There's a little magnet right here. And this little camera ties this little, you can see this cord, it goes and ties in the back of that desktop computer. The cool thing about this is it's sort of like an old school transparency. This is a dry erase board. I would write on that, and it would project what I was writing right there. So if I'm doing math, I could write out the word problems. If I had maybe a worksheet or something I wanted to write right there, I could put it right on top, and it would project to the students. So that's something that was a lifesaver for me, because anybody can share something on the screen, but when you want to manipulate things in front of you, if I'm doing like if we're building words, I can add a TH on the end of a word. I can put the ING on the end. I can keep manipulating things, and then the kids can be interacting with it. So this is what I had in quarantine last year, and this is what is my best friend this year. Adapters, adapters, adapters. There are so many older devices and older, like that iPivo cameras on the older side. We have newer laptops. So you can see this adapter goes into my laptop. This is just a USB port, but there's a smaller port here for sometimes you have to also get like sound in there. And this is another port that can connect either my laptop or the iPivo camera, either to my laptop or to the desktop computer, and then additionally project it to the smartboard. Here's my smartboard. So I wrote on top of my dry erase board, you can see my dry erase marker. I wrote, hello, men's group. And so here's my smartboard all the way. This is a big, I don't know if you can see my little signs. This is a big, probably 5 by 6 foot screen right here. And so you can see as I write, it's up on a board. This is important because when I'm teaching, I have kids on screen on Zoom, but as of October 12th until now, I would also have kids in front of me. So then I could be working on this dry erase board, and the kids around me can see the board, the smart board. The kids on Zoom can see what's on my screen. And then if I needed to, I could walk around the room and try to juggle all of that at the same time. So here's a little example about how the juggling. The IPVO camera, you can see I wrote something here and you can see it projected up on my desktop. Okay, the desktop would have multiple purposes depending on what my needs were for the group of kids. So, you know, like I said, this is sort of like old school, being able to manipulate things here. This is what projects everything. And then if I tie this camera into this computer, the kids on Zoom can see it. I can project it up on the smart board if there are kids actually in front of me also. And then we could also have some seesaw lessons on there. And seesaw is pretty much what it is it's a platform. It's a holding place. It's like a virtual classroom. And the teachers would upload assignments in there and the kids would actually draw or type or write their assignments and they just submit it. So it's sort of like a filing cabinet in the computer. And it's not very quick for the kindergarten, first, second graders. Third graders have gotten better with it. Fourth and fifth graders aren't bad with it at all, but it's a way to have the students on Zoom to be able to access the same materials as the kids that are right in front of you. And I will say on a side note, the teachers, anything they could make in paper copies, they would photocopy what they could. And we have a big table in the front of our school and there's a box with every teacher's name on it. And the teacher will go out there and put, you know, the next test, the next workbook, the next whatever out there. So the kids that are virtual, the parents would come in, get what they need, take it with them. And when they come to get the next load, they drop off the papers that they have at home. So the parents have been running around quite a bit too. There are times where I need even more help than just the IPVO camera, the smart board, and the desktop computer, and my laptop would be there. So sometimes what I would do is on my laptop, I would have the kids' faces from Zoom, and I would share this screen right here. And so I would use this adapter and I would plug the smart board into this adapter into my laptop. So then my laptop would have the kids from Zoom, I could project to the smart board, it would have this, but then I would need to use my desktop to either see what the next math question was or to see just some of the other things. Sometimes I needed like extra screens in front of me, or I needed to project something up there for the kids in the classroom that were sort of sitting around me. So, so sometimes it required two devices. So here, a little video of my classroom. So this is where I would sit and I swing around, there's my desk. And then kids would sit all around here and you can see the smart board over there. That right there, I'm gonna show you that video again. That picture on the smart board is a picture from our fourth grade. And you can see there are 4 teachers and they each made a Bitmoji of each of them. So any fourth grade student would go to the same page, but then if their teacher was Mrs. Welts, they'd click on Mrs. Welts right here and they'd go to her activities. If they had Mrs. Kryza, they'd click right here and they'd go to those activities. So it was, it took a lot of collaboration, but yet when the teachers would work together, it made things go smoothly. And everybody wasn't creating their own web page, they were sharing it. Whoops. So right here, you can see, here's an example of the fourth grade teachers again, but on my screen right here, I have the option of saying to mirror my Mac or use as a separate display. So what that means is there are times that I want what's on my desktop to be exactly up what's on the screen on the smart board. But then there were times where I wanted the smart board to have the faces of all the kids that were Zooming, and on my desktop, I would have the activities or vice versa. So sometimes you would have your desktop and your smart board with the exact same thing. And sometimes you would have 2 different screens. Sometimes I just wanted the Zoom kids in front of me, but I wanted up on the board, I wanted what the math problems were. So I had the option to flip back and forth between that. And I think that's what that shows. I don't think this is a video. The owl. So an owl, and I forget what the owl stands for, but the owl is not something I have in my room because I'm a specialist. I do interventions. I work with small groups. So I work with more kids that need support with math, with reading, with behavior, with things like that, with writing. So, but if you're in the big classroom, and especially at the secondary level, they have these things called owls. And what an owl can do is an owl can follow the teacher around if he or she wants them to. It can show the board and the class at the same time. And it really helps out the kids that are at home on Zoom because it also has a speaker. So if a child at home is on Zoom, sometimes the kids in the class can't hear them. And sometimes when the kids in the class are speaking, the kids on Zoom can't hear. So when you have an owl, it helps give vision all around and it helps with the sound. And this is what the owl looks like. And we have all these tripods for them. So I have a video from a teacher at the middle school who is also a member of Westminster. Her name is Kristen Light, and she has a third grader at Pocopson, and she has a seventh grader at Patton. So I'll do that. I think I'm recording. Awesome.
You are.
Okay. Hello, men's retiree group. I'm here at Pocopson Elementary School, Zooming with Kristen Light, who's a teacher. She's also a Westminster family member too, but she's a teacher at Patton Middle School. She has an owl, and just spelled the way the bird, O-W-L, in her classroom, which I don't use. So I'm Zooming with her, and she's going to show us how this works. So Kristen, you're in your classroom, and first things first, tell us what the owl does.
So the owl works as a speaker from Zoom. So the kids who are speaking at home, I can change it so that we can hear them speaking out of it in the classroom. Or if the kids in the classroom are speaking, the kids at home can hear them. It also works as a speaker with music. So sometimes I'll share my screen and play music and everybody can hear it much better and more clearly. And then it provides a camera that will follow you around the room if you're moving. This year, we're not really allowed to move because that puts us too close to the students, but it will follow the voice of kids. My 8th graders don't like that because they don't want to be on screen. So they've asked to not have that happen. So I usually control it and I put it facing the board or facing me so that the kids can see something I'm writing on the board.
Awesome.
I think that's it.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. So now we're going to have Kristen put it in motion. So I'm going to put Kristen on speaker view. And so, but really one of the big things about connecting to the kids that are on Zoom is that here's the board that they can see this, but now they can also see the kids in the classroom. So Kristen has the app on her phone. And so while she teaches, she can adjust all of this with her phone. So right here, you can see there's Kristen and she's, there you are. And then so if the one of the kids is presenting, you can see that the kids on Zoom could focus on that, but they could still reference something that was on the front board. All right, well, I was hoping then that video was going to show what Kristen could see, but apparently it didn't. So I will try to see, I will try to see if I can get it. It was supposed to be sharing and it must not have recorded all of that. So anyway, I will see if I can get more video from the owl. I was hoping that video took a picture, but there might be something with it where it doesn't allow it to be recorded. That was one of the concerns in the beginning of the year, that using the owl, that it was going to give parents a view of what's going on in the classroom, and they're going to use what they see from the owl to, I don't know, get mad at the teacher about something, accuse the teacher of something, all that kind of stuff. But really, there's not really being recorded. It's sort of live when it's happening, and we have enough trouble getting the kids just to come and participate. We're not even worried about the parents coming in. So anyway, so here's another example of some of the cameras the district had to purchase. that would give you, you can see it just sitting here on the tripod. It's essentially the same thing as my IPVO camera, but you can see it's a little camera, and the cord, here it is here, you can see how long the cord is all the way to that side of the room. And that's necessary because sometimes you have to have the camera in the back of the room, you have to have it to the side, all that kind of stuff. And speaking of cameras, there are some kids whose parents do not want them to be recorded. That was easily handled. You just have the camera sort of in front of them or them off to the side, or they could keep their screens off. So all of our worries and what ifs that we were worried about in August, we held our nose, jumped, lived the life of virtual and hybrid, and things have worked out okay. Another thing that's was actually standard in our school, even without the pandemic, is something called the soundboard. And what it is this is a soundboard that when the teacher wears this device here, this device is charging with this little plug, but typically you unplug this and there's a little cord and the teachers wear it around their neck. And this little device sits right here, right below them. They're sort of on this like under part of their neck, around their collar. And what they found was years ago, they had some kids who had hearing issues and they couldn't hear all the frequencies. So the teacher would wear a little microphone like that. And they had a sort of like, it was almost like a backpack that would project the teacher's voice in all of the frequencies. And what they found was all the kids around that student who had that speaker system, their grades improved, their learning improved. So our PTO raised some money, and every year invested money in more and more. And so that every classroom has one of those soundboards, and the teacher wears this. And so no matter where you are in the room, everybody hears every frequency and can clearly hear what the teacher is saying. Now, this has been very important this year. Fortunately for our school district, it was not an extra purchase because we already had these, but this is a way that you could, project your voice enough so you could be heard clearly on Zoom. And the kids could actually even, if you had your microphone near your phone, near your laptop or desktop computer, they could hear it clearly. Okay, so here is a little example of how Zoom works. I recorded myself on Zoom while I also had my daughter on Zoom. So it's sort of the same thing twice. So I guess here's my Zoom. Okay, I think we're recording. Okay, so and I'm gonna start filming in here too. Okay, so here is Casey on Zoom. And when I have Casey on Zoom, I'm gonna back up and show you my screens here. You can see she's on Zoom and I have my PIVO camera. And then I also have my desktop. So on my desktop, I could look at something here, such as like the 4th grade teachers. If I needed to look at anything that I needed to. So here's the other side of this. Casey on Zoom. And when I have Casey on Zoom, I'm going to back up and show you my screens here. You can see she's on Zoom and I have my PIVO camera. And then I also have my desktop. So on my desktop, I could look at something here, such as like the 4th grade teachers, if I needed to look at anything that I needed to here. Additionally, I could go up to here, hit use as separate display. And when I do that, I would have it would be over there. You can see on the smart board if I had students in the classroom. So with Casey, if I wanted her to see the same thing, I would click share screen and you can see how Casey's right there. I can manipulate things here. I could still put something up on my desktop if I needed to. And you can see how what is up there is right here. So that's how you connect to kids in person. Okay, so that basically gives you the gist of how you're sort of manipulating things back and forth. Oops. Whoops. All right. Let me see. There we go. So now we're on to some safety things that are happening in the school. When we started off the year, I put this little stuffed animal behind it. I'm not sure if you can see, but there's this plexiglass that goes up here and around. So we would try to have the students, like I would have a little tape mark on the table and the chair, and then we'd measure 6 feet over, and I'd have another chair with some tape mark to make sure that we know that those chairs go right by those tape mark spots and they're 6 feet apart. And then we even had some plastic in between, especially if we had to hand things back and forth. Since then, I don't have any more of these plastic things in my room. They're now being used in the cafeteria because just starting this week, the kids are coming in to have lunch. So they're being used there. But some of these safety precautions have sort of, we've moved away from some of them because they weren't necessary. Air purifiers. So my room's smaller. I have a small air purifier. There it is. This is our air purifier. We turn it on. We can do 1 level, 3 levels, 2 hours, 4 hours. And you can hear it going. Okay, so there's that. Mine's smaller. This is our. Here's a picture of for a normal size classroom that has about 20 kids. You can see how big it is, and they can get revving. Here's the classroom. This was not a typical classroom from October through just last week. This would have had about 10 to 12 desks in it. But because of the new restrictions that they say we can be 3 feet apart, these desks have been moved in here. Basically, we are sticking to 6 feet apart as much as we can. And there might be some desks that are about 4, maybe 5 or something feet apart, but we're getting as close to 6 feet apart as we can. I know it looks like some of these desks are closer, but this is a 5th grade classroom. And in the 5th grade classroom, they also have desks for the students that might come in at math time. And when they come in at math time, they would have their own seat that nobody else has been sitting in. So we pretty much, because of the size of our classroom and because of the low numbers of the class sizes that we have, we almost every classroom has 6 feet distance between them. They have tape on the corners, and the kids are very respectful about staying in their area and not moving desks around or going to visit friends and things like that. You can see our water fountains. They put a PVC pipe and they use zip ties to tie it on. We can't use any of the water fountains. Everybody has to bring their water bottles. And this is something, do you see these buckets? These buckets have special cleaner in there. And then these poles right here, they have sort of like, you can see the flat part there, in between different groups of kids. And when the kids leave, the teachers and the pairs come by with those buckets, and that has like a disinfectant in it. And those poles go in, they go on the, there's a cloth pad it hooks onto, and they wipe them all down, and they wipe all the desks and chairs quickly. And then it has to sit for 10 minutes. But it's always, the kids are off to like lunch or recess, or it's between sessions of kids and they're not going to be in there for another 15, 20 minutes. So it's work. It's a lot of work. The teachers have to be quick to get on that kind of stuff. And we have a lot of pairs and extra people in the building that are assigned to different rooms. And so as soon as the kids leave, they can work together and they can clean off all those surfaces. We also have, depending on the size of the room, this right here is a team room. And so there can only be 4 people in there. And where they're sitting is always social distancing. And I think that's it. That is the end of my presentation. So I'm sorry I didn't get that owl video to come through okay. It was just as a video, and it has the top part you could see the kids in the class, and the bottom part you could see the board. And so it's another way to connect and get everybody, the kids at home, the kids in the classroom, the teacher, to all sort of have the same vision of the of the materials and of the lesson. So that, I know I spoke quickly. I know I went over a lot of things, but I am happy to, I'll share this video and see if I can answer any more questions. Thanks so much. Hello, retirees group. Here I am again, Sarah Terranova. And I was quite glad to talk to Craig Gardner about my previous presentation and find out that the men's retirees group is now a co-ed men and women group. So thrilled to hear that. My apologies for calling it the men's group. That's what I always saw it labeled in the bulletin. And kudos to you men for getting with the times. So, again, I apologize. I'm so glad to hear this is a men's and women's. It's just a retirees group. So I showed my presentation to Craig Garner, and he had some questions. So I'm going to look at some of the questions and see if I can answer them. And I'm happy to answer these questions after you watch this presentation, even after, I think it's on March 30th that you're going to see this. So one of his questions was, it seems like a lot of technology for teachers to learn. Do you think most felt comfortable with teaching by remote? We had a lot of training over the summer. We were thrown into a new scope of technology when Governor Wolf shut us down in March 13th of 2020. And so we had a lot of learning just in that time period. But over the summer, the Chester County Intermediate Unit made a program, and it basically was 24 hours of training that we went through. We did it through the computer. We could self-pace, and so we learned a lot in that time. And on one hand, it's a lot. On the other hand, a lot of these tools we were using in the schools. It definitely helps to have teachers of all different age groups, because over the years, when you have 22, 23, 24-year-old men and women coming in to teach, they bring a whole nother level of technology in that we're not used to. Our technology department is so helpful, very knowledgeable. And so I will say our technology, there's a technology teacher, which the kids go to learn computers. And then there's also a person in the building that just handles all technology issues. Those two guys were quite busy in the fall. But the fact that there are teams that work together, the first grade team might have a few more seasoned teachers and then might have two or three younger teachers. They would help each other out. And the other part of technology is, once you create it for one, it's so easy to share for everybody. So there was our teaching teams work together already. So it was sort of like a good fit with that. But it helped too that our district did buy us some extra little cameras and other necessary things. So what did the kids see on the camera at home? Well, pretty much what you're seeing now. They would see, if I had done a better job with that owl video, you would have seen that they would have seen like their classmates in the seat. They would have seen the smart board, those kind of things. Is it as good as being in person? No, but it does a pretty good job. And that little IPVO camera that I work with, that I could put, I can manipulate things with my hands. I could put a worksheet there. I could write on a whiteboard. So it did a pretty good job. I think the most difficult part about any of this is when you have students in person and students on Zoom. When I have my small group sessions and everybody's on Zoom, it's easier. When I have kids in person, that's easier. The combination of both is quite challenging. And really, in the end, the consistency of internet was another challenge. Just today, I was working with 2 students in the classroom, 3 on Zoom, and they kept telling me my screen was freezing, and it just was constant. And so that can be quite frustrating. So with participation in Zoom, so some of the ways that the kids can participate in Zoom is there's a little bar at the bottom called reactions. So I could say yay when I want to clap, or I could put my thumbs up if I so wanted to. I could love something. I could laugh at something, I could be shocked and celebrate. So I'm sure there's a way of making more of them or making thumbs down or things like that. But maybe this would be no, and then this could be yes, and things like that. So there's that kind of participation. There's also, we can spotlight certain speakers. So whoever's speaking gets spotlighted. We have the power to mute. So we can mute the whole class, or we can mute the whole class and just unmute the one kid that's speaking. That's a very useful tool. Um, so some of those, that there are ways that the kids can participate, especially with the speaker system. The kids could just talk on Zoom like they would just in the classroom. So some kids feel very shy on Zoom. Some kids don't. Some kids are shy in the classroom and they're very, very vocal on Zoom. So it just depends. And all of our training this summer talked about connecting as much as you can, because that's how someone's going to feel more comfortable on Zoom. Um, how can we tell if they're learning? Well, that's tricky. Craig also asked, we were given assignments, and the parents could come by car and pick up the assignments in boxes that were marked. And was that possible for all parents? So we, for the most part, yes. Our community is not that big, and it wasn't that bad for parents to come. Some of which because most parents are still working from home. So that made it quite easy, or at least one is still working from home. Some people live in neighborhoods; they could get a neighbor to pick up the materials. So I don't think we had anybody who could not get it. I know personally when I had someone who needed something and there was some issue, because I live in the community where I teach, I would drive it to their house and put it in their mailbox. So, um, so there was different ways to get different things, and people did get their supplies. But how can we tell if they're learning? That's tricky. We there's always a way to cheat. There's always a way to bend rules. Even in life as an adult, you can do that. So we rely on the good faith of the parents. There was a lot of communication with the school district, the principals, and the teachers to say, hey, listen, there's times I want you to help your child, and there's times where I say, okay, it's an assessment, you need to walk away. Um, were there times we could see an adult hand reaching in and pointing to something or whispering answers? We did, but in the end, you can't keep that up. The parents who are trying to do that, you can't keep that up. You can't be there for every assignment. And so there's certain kids we might see some inconsistencies where we might have seen more of an average score and we got some high ones in there. But in the end, as the kids come back, the learning will be a lot more authentic. And it's just, you can just do the best you can. If someone's going to take it to that level, it's sort of hard to call them out on that, but you don't get anywhere in life by cheating. So um, it really isn't much different than before the pandemic. The internet's out there, and so we would have parents that request gifted testing for their kids, and then they go online and they try to pull up the standardized gifted tests that are out there and have their kids practice the test before they come in. And you can't do anything about that. So when the kid gets in the gifted program and they really shouldn't be there, they struggle, and that's sad. But that's just the way some people will be with things. And so for the most part, people are honest. They want the best for their kid, and so we really, we noticed a difference on some tests that we did, that they performed better in school than out of school. So was the discrepancy huge? No, but is enough that for some kids we do notice that. And fortunately, we're heading in the right direction to be back in school. So I guess we call that job security for the teachers. We won't be replaced by robots. Um, so the next question was, might such a learning system as you've had to implement help kids become even more technology skilled and savvy? Um, I hate to say it, but Craig's showing his age with this. The kids are technologically savvy. Even in my classroom, if something's going, if I do something the same way and there was a glitch, they'll be like, oh, just do this, this, and this. And I did this, this, and this, and it worked. So even when my dad asked me for help with something on the computer or for his remote for his TV or anything like that, I'll say ask my kids. So even my third grader can help out as much as my seventh grader. They just know more technology than we do. So the kids are definitely technologically savvy already. So I think it just helps the adults to catch up with them a little bit. Um, I do think that the screen time was a little too much. Um, so we've tried to do a lot of things to cut down on that. Now that we're back in person full time, we're not giving homework so they can just go home and get outside and then read actual books at home. There were some days that they called asynchronous days, which would the just be you would go on the computer and just see your assignments, and then you could get off your computer and you could do those assignments. Um, in the spring, we had to do things quickly, but in the fall, we had the ability to send as many things as we could home so that when the students could just look on the computer for the workbook pages and they could actually work in a workbook. So I think more than worrying about how technologically savvy they are, it's the screen time. Um, that's just our eyes and our brains weren't meant to be on a screen for that long. Where do you think your school succeeded and where do you think it could have done better? Mm, from what I heard from a lot of parents who have nieces and nephews in other districts, or maybe they just have friends in other districts, especially in the spring, they said that we nailed it. We never stopped. If Governor Wolf shut us down on a Friday, we started school up on a Monday. We never stopped to train teachers. We might have taken like one day, but we tried to fill in with just regular time, getting caught up on things. We trained over the summer, and so I think we did a pretty good job. We succeeded in making learning a lot more engaging this year compared to what we did in quarantine. Um, I know one of my daughters really hated it last spring, and I was very worried about her going into the fall. But she was fine. She's been fine all year. So um, I think I don't know. I think some of those concerns we will see as we progress and we get everybody back in and we see where the holes are. Um, was it easy? No. But we just kept bending and changing and adjusting and doing what we can. Um, I do think we should have had more of a strict line on who was on virtual and who was um, in person because some parents thought it was fun to take a lot of vacations and then they'd quarantine and they come back and or maybe Johnny just didn't feel like getting up so he didn't have to come in that day and that I think was really difficult on teachers because if you expect them to be there you don't know that you have to send supplies home and so that part was very tricky. Our superintendent did say that that's going to change so next year if anybody wants to be on virtual. They're going to go to a virtual academy. So the virtual academy is a Unionville Chad's Forward virtual academy, and it's it's got a lot of good stuff going on. It's just set up differently than in person, and that will be helpful for teachers. Um, was there any pushback or frustration on the part of the parents who thought their child should be in school full time rather than learning remote? There was pushback on both sides. I think our school district did a really good job giving the option of attending through Zoom. You could attend a virtual academy if you needed more flexibility in your schedule, or you could come in person. So they gave every option for as best as they could as far as what the health department would allow and Governor Wolf would allow. And there's a ton of parents that weren't happy either way. So I think that's pretty common nowadays. And everyone's case is different. But if you didn't feel safe, you could stay home and be on virtual. And if you wanted to come in as of October 12th, 2020, you could come in. So there are definitely people that wanted to be in there 5 days a week, full day. And now we've done that. So we eventually got there. Many students whose parents really needed that, they went to Upland or some other private schools. So we'll see if they come back or not. But there weren't a ton of kids that did that. From my perspective as a parent, how did my kids do in the past year? Did they see it as an adventure? No, they definitely did not see it as an adventure. The first 2 weeks, they thought it was fun. and back in the spring. And then after that, they were over it. I don't think they'll ever complain about going to school again. They are very much appreciate their time with their friends. They've definitely improved their executive functioning skills. And I think that they've learned as much as their peers have. So I'm not sure the impact of all of this down the road. I think compared to a lot of districts, we've done well. Did we do as well as if we did in 2018, 2019? Probably not, but we're in a pandemic. Did we do terrible? No, we did pretty well. So I definitely think that the kids have somewhat gotten used to it. And every time there's another, when we went from virtual to being half day in person, my kids were thrilled. Now that we are going full day, every day in person, they're thrilled. So any sport event that was allowed to happen, they were thrilled about that. So yeah, they venture no. um, they'll be really excited to get back to a type of normal. So now that students are back in the classroom full time, what are the main challenges for teachers in ensuring healthy, COVID-free environments, yet still achieving learning? You know what? We've really done a good job keeping kids separate, and I have to say the kids are very respectful. They keep their masks on. If they slip down and we say pull it back up, they do. If we say keep some distance, they always forget to keep distance, but then we remind them and they keep the distance. So they're very good about washing their hands. There's hand sanitizer all over the place. There's wipes. They help remind us of certain things here and there. I think they are all so excited just for the opportunity to be in there that they help out and they do what they can. So I think our staff is a very just a very social, lovey kind of staff. So, there's a lot of times where we would normally put our arm around someone or, little first graders like to hold their first grade teacher. And so those kind of things are hard because we can't do any of that stuff. But no high fives, no handshakes, any of that stuff. We have parents that come in and hug us. None of those things can happen. Parents can't even come in the building. So that bit's a little weird because we're a pretty spirited school. We've had big Halloween parades and we have parents coming in all the time for a million different reasons, and none of that's happening. So it does feel a little flat, but compared to being at home and away from everything, they definitely appreciate all the new things that happen. Our school district is also doing a ton of things to collect data. I fill out reports all the time on the interventions I'm doing with kids so they can keep track of where kids are falling, where we need to put in some more supports and things like that. So I think there's something in the works now for a little bit of extra help for some kids. So I'm not sure the details. I haven't read about it yet, but they're definitely keeping an eye on that. They're having a lot of conversations. They're collecting data, and they're trying to keep on top of that. So, um, so what did I, as a teacher, learn the past year? I learned patience. I learned that, I mean, I think I'm already flexible, but I had to be even more flexible. I learned to be prepared for certain things. Like I had certain bags that I could just grab and go home just in case we thought the numbers might be high and we could be shut down or things like that. And that never happened. Um, I definitely learned a lot more technology. And I think I have more parent cell numbers than I've ever had because when kids are in virtual and they were going to Zoom with me, I would text their mom and say, I need Johnny, I need Karen. And so I text them to remind them to attend the Zoom sessions. So those kind of things because parents are working, so they forget to tell their child, oh, it's 2 o'clock, we need to go Zoom with Mrs. Terranova. So just those kind of things. But it's a learning curve. And could there be any issues outside learning that we could see reflected in schools or students in the future that we will have to learn? Mental health is a big, big concern. Our counselors have worked really, really hard to connect in person, to connect through Zoom, to connect to parents. Um, We have behavior specialists who've connected with parents for ideas on things. So we've done what we can. Mental health is has been a growing area anyway, and so I think the internet, even before the pandemic, with social media and things like that, there's already been issues with mental health and isolation and things like that. So this definitely put a bigger burden on that for sure. But we're hoping that this is all getting better as more and more people are getting vaccinated and the weather's getting nicer and more and more people have had the disease and the numbers are going down. So that part's helpful. Teacher burnout, I was really worried about that in the beginning of the year, but as the kids, as we've gotten out of virtual and into half day, and then we've gotten to the point where we've been able to have kids in full day, I think that's really rejuvenated the teachers. Plus, spring break is coming, so that rejuvenates us too. Um, and I guess that's it. That was Craig's list of questions. So I hope that was helpful. I'm sorry to have just to talk and talk and talk, but um, I definitely think that we're heading in the right direction. And I hope that we are soon without masks because um, it was so interesting to see a lot of these kids come back out of virtual full day and just see how tall they've gotten and things like that. So to be able to see someone's full face when they smile will be great. To have assemblies, to have our little concerts, our Christmas concerts and our music concerts, to have Halloween parades, field day, all that kind of stuff. That's all the things that are the true memories the kids have of school. So hopefully all that's coming back really soon. So, and I hope to see all of you very soon too. So hopefully the church is opening up also. So, thanks for having me. And if you have any more questions, let Craig know and I can help to answer the questions. So, bye.